nothing serious, but they didn't do the boring stuff. And we have Brett, our son-in-law, who's married to Leah, our daughter. And we're lucky, we have a little extra thing here today. We have Shannon, one of Leah's friends from junior high and high school.
Shannon and I grew up in high speech together at the age of 12,
Right down here.
13, and 14, up till our high school days. She lost her son 6 months ago at the age of 20, so I feel like she's been brought to us today to help her. I really feel like she's here for us to help her today, so I'm happy that you're here with us.
And then we have our two little soldiers. We have Jenna and Colin, Brett and Leah's children. And they both, since Darian passed, Jenna's come over a few times, and she has this calming, wonderful effect on the house. And then Colin comes over, there goes the dog, and he puts in energy. Jenna's the pond, the placid pond deep in the forest. Colin's the babbling brook going through the field with the sun coming down. And they've really helped us at this time. They love their Uncle Darian. So anyway, Darian was our rock star. He was our rebel. He was our warrior. And he also he lived by his own rules, and he walked his talk. If his rules didn't quite fit, and something pushed back on him, he owned it. He didn't run from it, hide from it. So anyway, Bob is going to read this.
Okay.
And okay. Pat wrote most of this.
This is, I'm going to do this. Actually, I had a sequence. I was going to do the Tom Petty and Michael Fox thing.
Oh, fun.
Okay.
We'll lighten up a little bit. Start with I came in the band after they had the hit, the first one, and at first we were 6 guys, and then we went on the road. And so we would be on the road, and we flew a lot of places, but I had this green Ford Econoline van. And Jerry Corbetta, the band leader, had an Audi, and all the rest of the guys had Volvos. So we'd be on the road with an equipment truck and 3 Volvos, an Audi, and the kids in tow. So we had this van, and we had probably, I don't think it was probably, we had the cutest bunch of kids anywhere on the roadways. And my son Christian, who I lost, his daughters will be 24 in July. She just finished college. I lost him. I was a single parent, so I feel you there. But I always, when this happened with Darian, to me it was, there's this picture of them together. I should have had a larger made, but we were playing Griffith Park, and he and my son were both about this. Darian was about 3 months older than Christian, and they were 2 of a kind. They were just a couple of the cutest characters you could ever see. And when I heard this, it hit me again, because it was like, I guess from that picture and remembering that picture, even though I didn't see it, it was like there was still something here of my son. There was still somebody that had connected with him. Probably the first little boy that my son ever connected with. And then to realize that Darian was gone, that's kind of the way it hit me, because it does self first, and then you go back to think about the other people. And in this band, that's three of them besides the 6 that we had lost sons. Really kind of just really kind of hit home. So I'm going to read. I've got 2 or 3 things that I'm going to end with something from Pat. Actually, they all are. But the first thing I wanted to read, this was from Pat too. Yeah. This was this was just before I was in the band, and this was pretty much the way, this will give you an idea of this little kid. This is Pat talking here. The Who was playing at the newly refurbished Mammoth Gardens with Sugarloaf opening for them in October of 1970. Darian was about 19 months old, and he and I were waiting in the dressing room for Sugarloaf to start their set. Darian was getting antsy and rambunctious and ran out of the dressing room down the hall in full speed into an open door with me chasing him. It was the Who's dressing room, with Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend sitting right inside the door, and Darian came to a sudden stop. I can just see this. This is what that picture. Darian came to a sudden stop with a wide smile and started looking around, and the band was enamored with him and said how cute he was. They invited us to stay for a while. I was so intimidated, I declined, and they were already engaging with Darian and said, oh, just let him stay, we'll watch him. Do you want a sandwich anyway? I took my sandwich and left my son to play with the Who. I went back to the dressing room for about 20 minutes. You never know how much the Who would charge to babysit. I walked in, Darian was sitting in Pete Townsend's lap, picking up the guitar strings while Pete played the frets. It was something I will never forget as long as I live. They laughed and said, bring him back anytime, and shook his little chubby hand, and we went on our way. Darian had such a way about him, and he had that throughout his life. People would come up to him in the stores and start talking to him about his t-shirts or anything. He was fearless. The band played a concert in Fort Collins, and the audience was waiting for the band to come onto the stage. Darian was once again running around like a little madman with me chasing him, and he ran out onto the stage and came to a sudden stop again, and the audience went wild cheering him. The guy running the spotlight put it on Darian. I, Pat, was off the stage trying to get him off, and he kept saying no. So I slapped the floor of the stage and said, come here now, Darian. Of course, he bent over and slapped the floor himself, and the audience went crazy with cheers and applause. The audience is rooting for Darian here. He bent over and slapped, okay. He looked up surprised and smiled. Then the guy with the spot started shining it all over the stage, and Darian kept trying to chase it to get it back on him. The audience kept cheering. Bob finally walked out on the stage and picked him up and took him off the stage, and the audience, of course, booed. He was a rock star and he wasn't even aware.
That's good.
One of the adventures of the little fellows.
Great story.
This is another writing. Mom had a lot to say.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be a stand-in. I was a mom once myself. Okay?
Yeah.
I understand this stuff. The subject of this one is Tom Petty and Michael J. Fox. Darian was the kind of guy who stood out in the crowd and influenced people. He was the guy that the girls all flirted with and the guys wanted to hang with. He had a certain cool about him that most people just didn't have. He looked like a biker with long hair and tan fit body most of his life. He was the guy you wanted with you on a dark, scary night. I was proud to call him my son. He wasn't embarrassed to hang with his mom and dad. He was too cool to worry about what everybody else thought. He had a major influence on Mom. He taught me to see people for what they were and not for what they had. He turned me on to TV programs that I wouldn't have watched on my own, like Sons of Anarchy and Walking Dead. And I love them and still watch Walking Dead to this day, and I wish that I could share my thoughts with him about it. He was a guy who loved to shop and could spot a deal a mile away. He would look at toilet paper and tell me which was the better buy, looking at the total square feet. I trusted his judgment, and he was usually right. He would compare prices at the department stores and find the same item for half the price at Ross and TJ Maxx. He never saw a knife he couldn't live without, kitchen or throwing knife, and cups of all kinds, water bottles, coffee cups, drinking glasses, little flashlights. He loved buying anything, Dickies, shirts, pants, you name it. He loved wrestling and the Divas and Two Broke Girls. The DVR is still recording his shows and I just can't bring myself to cancel them. The little red light on the cable box brings me some comfort and reminds me that he was such a big part of our lives. Both good, sometimes not so good. He would antagonize the dog and say to her, "That's my ball," which would always make her growl and snarl. Pull Colin's toes, grab my foot, and tickle it and pinch pop pop. Never a dull moment with that man-child. You recognize all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Do your calling and pulling your toes?
He loved to cook, especially grilling out, mixing up all kinds of sauces for brats, ribs, and steaks. He would sing in a falsetto voice all the songs that played over the loudspeaker at work, and the other guys would laugh and start singing with him. He knew all the old songs that came on, and they asked him how he knew them, and he said, "Riding in the backseat of Mom's car." He said to me, "Yeah, Mom, that's how I knew them all." He had me listening to the heavy metal station in Kansas City, and I got familiar with Five Finger Death Punch, Motorhead, Slayer, and all the other bands he liked. Clutch and Motorhead were his favorites. He loved his friends in Fayetteville, Rance and Perry. His favorite times were hanging out with them at the studio when they were in, this is a band name, Cover of Darkness. He probably was happiest when he was with Amber and had the mowing company with Bob and his friends in Cover of Darkness. He was so proud to be selling merchandise at the gigs, he felt like he was almost a member of the group. In August of 1985, the McVitie family went to see Tom Petty at the Wilton Theater, an old Art Deco theater in Los Angeles, California. Little did we know how eventful this night would be. As we came in the front door, we would be subjected to a search, and lo and behold, I would have the knife in my purse that I had used to cut my apple at lunch that day. Who knew? After finally getting all that drama taken care of, we were finally seated and got ready to enjoy the concert. It was a good show. At the break, we were all standing around getting drinks and food when Michael J. Fox came up to Darian and asked him if he had been at the movies at the Lorena Theater in the Valley the night before. Darian said yes, he had been there, and Michael asked Darian if he would like to join him in his section and hang out. Darian agreed to, and for the rest of the concert, Pat, I spent more time looking at their section in disbelief than the rest of the concert. It was a pretty amazing night, and one I would not forget. At 5:30, January 26, 2016, I went downstairs to Darian's room because he didn't come out to greet me like he always did. And I found him dead. He was lying on the couch with his legs hanging over the arm like he was asleep. When he didn't respond, I just knew that he was gone. I ran upstairs and yelled, "Bob, I think Darian's dead, he's gone." Bob ran downstairs and tried to wake him with no results. We were in such a state, Bob tried to call 911 and couldn't make the phone work. And I finally got through and told him, "I think my son is dead. I can't wake him up." It still feels like a bad dream, but it is painfully real.